This year, I researched a woman named Polly Murray for a class, and she's really incredible. She was born in North Carolina and was really involved in the labor movement, like the women's movement and the civil rights movement, but because as an African American woman, she found herself often marginalized for one of her identities by whatever movement that she was in. And she was rejected to Harvard Law because she was a woman, rejected from University of North Carolina graduate school because she was African American, and was a writer, poet, lawyer, activist, but then her life culminated in becoming the first African American woman to become ordained a priest in the Episcopal Church. And then she worked as a priest with very radical theology, and ended up being performing her first rite of Holy Eucharist in the same church that her great-grandmother, who was the child of her slave master's son, and her great-great-grandmother was baptized as a slave, and so she was standing at the same lectern where her biracial great-great-grandmother was baptized as a slave, and then she was performing this Holy Eucharist as the first African American woman priest in the Episcopal Church, the same place that's a block from my house. She just was never gonna deny or put up with anyone denying one part of her identity, because she just saw herself as fully human. So she's just the best. I guess my friend Blanche always she always pushes me in being critical just of systems of oppression in general, and is pretty good at calling out bullshit while also totally loving her life and loving herself and her friends fully. And I think it's incredible.
I've been thinking about this so much, and I could list off so many women that are just inspirational in their own ways and in their own fields and what they've done, but I have to talk about my mother today. So my parents are from Egypt, and they immigrated here, I think in the late 70s or early 80s. And when my mother got married, my mother and my father got married in 1980, and her mother died on the same day as her wedding day.
Oh my God.
And I didn't even know that until a few years ago when I was looking through photo albums and just, kind of looking what's going on? There's some weird energy happening, and that's when my father told me the story how my grandmother passed that day. And when I talked to my mom, she didn't close up. She didn't just say, oh, it wasn't a big deal or whatever. Yeah. She was very vulnerable with me, and she talked with me about how it was something that was very hard on her, but at the same time, it was bittersweet too, because she was immigrating to the United States. It was this big move across the ocean, and how now she could forge her own identity, with a new family. She's building a new family. So I think it shattered all preconception of what strength means to me when I saw her kind of just settle into that story and say, it was difficult, and this is what I did, and now here's where I am. There's also one of the biggest inspirations for me spiritually is a woman by the name of Dina Badawy, and she is from the 8th century. Yeah, I think she was born in 717 or something like that. And for me, I think the biggest part of my life where I am always dedicating my efforts and really trying to grow is spiritually. I'm always trying to understand what is going on inside. I know I'm not just my outer body, that I'm something more. And when I learned about her, she basically was the first, well, it's debated, but she could be one of the first people that ever developed the concept of divine love, which is if you love God, or if you love the spirit, or if you love that higher power, you love that higher power out of just strictly love, not out of fear of hell or promise of heaven, kind of the carrot or the whip. It's none of that. It's strictly out of love. And I think that that's very I think that you could see that through modern day, like romance and love and the way that we interpret love nowadays, even though that was well over 1,300 years ago.
Yeah.
It's still, you can see the manifestation of that nowadays when people are really embracing unconditional love and what that means for them. And a lot of times with masculinity and femininity, there's that struggle with what is love and how do I express it and how do I receive it. And it all goes back to that source. Like, how do you view love? And if you view it purely for the sake of its own self, you know, for the sake of just love, not punishment or reward. It's like you tap into that deeper part of you, and it gives meaning. Yeah, it's fulfillment and it's meaning to life, and it allows you to have purpose in life. So just to think that a woman at that time period, in a time where women were not really regarded as saints and, benevolent, divine messengers.
Yeah.
And she, could really break down barriers and do that. So.